Okay, so what I'm going to concentrate on this evening is really the exercise and physical activity work we've been doing at Newcastle University, because over probably the last 7 or 8 years, we've been leading worldwide in the exercise field in NAFLD. So as a physio, that's where I'm more comfortable in the exercise and physical activity side of things. I'm not going to talk about diet, but if you are interested in NAFLD and diet related things, we can get one of our NAFLD dietitians to come along at a later date to cover that. So, as probably we all know, NAFLD is caused by a build-up of fat within the liver, and it's a lifestyle related disease. It usually happens in people who are overweight and obese, or if they have type 2 diabetes, they are more likely to have it. It isn't caused by alcohol, and this is often a misconception that's linked because there's alcohol in the title of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So that's a message we're trying to get through to our patients as well. And as John's just alluded to, it's estimated to affect up to 1 in 3 adults in Western countries, and this figure is just increasing. So it is a big problem, but it's going to become a bigger problem over the next fair few years. Can everyone hear me for the time being?
The reception's not brilliant, but I can hear you.
You can kind of hear. So at the moment, there are no approved drugs to specifically target NAFLD. There are drugs that the doctors can prescribe to target some of the risk factors. So often you get prescribed a statin if you've got high cholesterol, or diabetic drugs if you've got diabetes, but there's nothing on the market to specifically target fatty liver. There are lots in trial at the moment, and I'm sure some of the medics will come along and talk to you about the clinical trials that are ongoing in NAFLD. So lifestyle interventions are key, and weight loss is the one thing that has been shown to help reduce fat in the liver, and can in some people actually completely remove non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But what we all know, if any of you have ever tried to lose weight, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to lose it. It's even more difficult to keep it off. So this is a massive problem. So what we decided to look at in Newcastle is the exercise side of things. So some people can't lose weight, some people don't want to lose weight. So what we decided to do is look at what could exercise on its own without weight loss achieve. And that's where my work kind of started to fit in. So just to kind of go right back to the start, we'll just go through a few of the definitions so it becomes clear what I'm talking about later. So physical activity is generally your day-to-day activities that you do without even thinking about them. So it could be mowing the lawn, it could be getting up from the chair to put the kettle on. It's just part of what you do as part of your daily routine. Exercise is a subcategory of physical activity, but it's generally planned, it's structured, it's done for a particular reason. So it can be done to improve your cardiorespiratory fitness, your strength, your flexibility. So I've just included some different examples of types of exercise. So aerobic, which is your cardiorespiratory, like jogging, cycling. Resistance is your strength training. Pilates is more about your core stability. And yoga tends to be more stretching and relaxation. So they're all important, but just different. And then this is one of the new things that we've started to become more aware of, is this sedentary behaviour. And sedentary behaviour refers to any activity that's characterised by really low energy levels. So it tends to be when you're sitting down, so at the moment you guys are doing sedentary behaviour, or if you're lying down, that's all classed as sedentary behaviour. And we're starting to become more interested in how much sedentary behaviour people have in their day and how it's broken up. So there was some research done a few years ago looking at questionnaires around physical activity, asking people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease how much activity they did in a week, and just asking them to try and remember what they did. And what those questionnaires showed was that people with NAFLD generally did less physical activity than those without NAFLD. Higher levels of activity were associated with lower levels of liver fat, so there's a little bit of a protective mechanism being pulled out of the research. Just to highlight again, this physical inactivity and sedentary behaviour is the 4th leading risk factor for mortality in the world, and is linked to poor metabolic health. So it's linked to increased levels of obesity, it's linked to increased levels of type 2 diabetes, and it's obviously now starting to get linked to NAFLD. And what the research is showing is how we accumulate this sedentary time is key. So it's not just the total time, it's how many times you break that sedentary behaviour during the day. So kind of just to put this into context of a day. So this is kind of a general day where someone is burning 3,000 calories. It's likely to be a man. The basal metabolic rate accounts for about 60% of the calories you burn on a day-to-day basis. And those calories are just burned keeping yourself alive. So it's the core bodily functions. It's keeping your heart pumping, it's keeping your brain working. And that is relatively static on a day-to-day basis. It's higher in bigger people, it's higher in more muscly people, but it's generally quite similar on a day-to-day basis. The green bit here is the thermic effect of food, and that's around about 10% of the calories you'll burn during the day just digesting and absorbing food. And that's relatively similar for all of us. The bit that I'm really interested in, and we're really interested in, is this red bit. It's the activity thermogenesis. And what this section is the calories burned by doing things during the day. So it can be split into exercise or this, they coined it NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, but this is basically physical activity. What we know in our NAFLD patients is, this is a sweeping generalisation, but the majority of them don't exercise. So this activity thermogenesis is all the orange box. The lower this is, the more likely you are to be obese. So the more we can kind of encourage people to increase their activity, the more calories they'll burn on a day-to-day basis. So what we decided to do in Newcastle, all the data so far had been from questionnaires, it had been from people having to remember what they'd done on a day-to-day basis, normally over a week, which we know isn't that reliable. If we're asking people to remember how many times they went up the stairs, how many times they walked 10 metres, that's really difficult. So we decided to use these activity monitors that some of you may have worn as part of other trials or as part of this trial. And basically it's worn for 7 days continuously. And what it will measure is measures movement in 2 directions, it measures your body temperature, it measures how vigorous, if you're doing any activity, how vigorous that activity is. And it also measures sleep. So it gives us a really good idea of what you do on a day-to-day basis. And it's a lot more objective. You couldn't really trick this machine into what you were doing. So what did we find? Well, people with NAFLD that took part in the study took about 1,700 steps less a day than those without fatty liver. That might not sound too much, but if you add all that up over a week, it's about 6 miles less that they were walking. And then the actual activity duration was about 45 minutes less in people with NAFLD. The general activity over the day was a much lower intensity in people with NAFLD than the controls. And the actual amount of calories they burnt during any activity was only just over half. So you can just see where these subtle differences are starting to come out. And this is an activity trace we get from those monitors. This helps us to look at the sedentary time. So we found that people with NAFLD spend on average about 5 hours extra a week in sedentary behaviours. So again, it doesn't sound much in a week, but times that by 52, we're starting to see huge difference in time over a year. So this is a plot of someone without NAFLD, 63-year-old lady. This is a 63-year-old lady with NAFLD. What these little lines are, the red, if you can make it out, is calories. The green that you might just be able to see are steps. But if you just think of all these as little activity peaks, so each time the person gets up, it triggers a little peak on the monitor. So this person got up just before 9 in the morning and was pretty much on the go till they sat down for dinner in the evening, and then they went to bed and finally settled, but they were pretty much up, down all day. This person with NAFLD, you can just see the difference that there's much fewer activity peaks during the day. And even during like the main bulk of the day, the person was doing a lot of sitting or lying down. So for me, this is quite a nice way of starting to talk to patients about subtle changes they might be able to make. So if they're not ready to exercise, maybe they're ready to start breaking the sedentary behaviour up a little bit. So it's just another thing that we can use to talk to people about their activity levels. And then what we did do is we started using the monitors in clinic with our clinical patients. So this is unpublished because it isn't part of a research study, but we're just interested in how many steps our patients took coming through the clinics. And you can just see, so they're all NAFLD patients. These are the ones that volunteered for our exercise studies. These are just our normal patients. And you can just see the difference between kind of our patients versus the ones that volunteer for exercise versus the control. There's a marked difference. So actually what we're reporting in our research studies is really estimating the difference between healthy and the real patients out there in the clinics. And again, you can see with the physical activity duration, it's under half that of our healthy controls. So from this, basically the clinical implications, people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease should be encouraged to increase their physical activity, and this should be incorporated into standard care. So we're trying to get the doctors to start thinking about getting these messages through. They're not difficult messages, but people need to know that actually this can make a difference to their liver health. These activity monitors are really useful to measure baseline activity levels and to set activity goals. It doesn't really matter what type of monitor we use, it's just so we can set a level so people have got the level to work from. And reducing total sedentary time, breaking up sedentary time is really beneficial. So if someone's not able to increase their activity, they may be able to break up the sedentary time just by moving around within the house, getting up to make a cup of tea whilst they're watching the TV. And it's a starting point for us to work from. And the other thing that this has made me realise is we really need to be tailoring our clinical interventions, our exercise packages, to you as an individual patient. We can't just expect everyone to pick up a gym programme and go with it. We need to work at the level that guys are at the baseline and then chip away, setting people small goals that they can actually achieve. So one way of increasing physical activity is by exercise. So we started to look at different types of exercise in this patient group. And in Newcastle, we were one of the first groups in the world to start looking at it. So the first study that I worked on was a strength training program. And I'm really proud to say this was the first one in the world. It got published in a really high impact journal. And I don't know how many times it's been cited now, but it's known throughout the liver field because no one had done it before. So what this was, it was an 8-week program, so quite short. People were asked to come along to the gym for this study 3 times a week. They were given a weight training program, and they basically progressed as their strength improved. And then we had a standard care control group. And what we found was every single person in that exercise group reduced their liver fat in 8 weeks. And I think 27% of the group actually went to a point with their liver fat that were actually below the cutoff for actually having NAFLD. So we did see some massive differences in people. It really improved people's blood sugar control as well. So regardless of whether people were diabetic or not, the exercise improved their glucose control. And this respiratory quotient basically is your fat burning capacity. And the lower that is, the better. So basically, those people that exercise increase their whole body capability of burning fat, which for someone that's got too much fat in their liver, that's got to be a bonus, really. And I was really surprised because I thought, this strength training program, people aren't going to like it. They're going to be bored. It's me being a bit stereotypical, it's more a young male thing to be doing strength training. Every single patient, regardless of age, sex, really enjoyed it, and not a single patient dropped out of the exercise arm. It's got to be said that the absolute effect of exercise, it was modest, so in absolute terms the reduction in liver fat was quite small, but it was very similar to that of the other aerobic type exercise studies that were going on at the time. And I think the place for this is alongside weight loss, alongside dietary change. So it's not necessarily going to be a standalone cure-all, but it's something that people can be doing that's going to help their liver health. And as with all these things, it's maintaining it beyond the 8 weeks of the study. we didn't have any follow-up beyond that. Wish now we had to see whether people continued, but a lot of it is getting people's behaviour changed. There's something that they want to do, they want to enjoy, and can see the benefits of doing it. So then from there, we went on to look at the time, this HIIT, I don't know if any of you have heard it, HIIT training. It was kind of the new kid on the block, where you do high intensity spells of exercise and you intersperse it with rest, then you go again as hard as you can. And it's basically the benefit of it is that you can fit more exercise into a shorter period of time. So we designed a program for 12 weeks. Again, it was 3 times a week, and it was all on an exercise bike. And we were just really interested to see whether this type of interval training had the same kind of effect as the weight training. And again, this had never been done in this particular patient group. And it's probably worth mentioning as well, to guide people, we recorded all the exercise sessions onto an iPod, so everyone went to the gym and they had Christian, who was one of our PhD students, who taught them through session 1 to 36 and progressed them every single week, so they weren't left to their own devices, it was all pre-recorded. So again, what we found was liver fat fell by, I think it was 27% relatively in this group over 12 weeks. Body fat went down, and lean body mass, so the muscle mass, went up. And this was all without change in body weight. So you can see that you can make big changes without people needing to lose weight. Again, it was really well tolerated. And again, it's got to be said that this is something that needs using alongside the weight loss and the dietary change to probably get the most benefit. But it's another option for people to try. And then we went on to look at, because the first 2 studies were in NAFLD, so they were just in people that had steatosis, or the fat in the liver. We went on to try and look at whether exercise could improve NASH. And our problem was always going to be, with this study, that ethically we could never do a liver biopsy at 0.1 and after 12 weeks. We just couldn't do it. So we had to use quite a lot of other markers that might show us whether NASH has improved or not. And if any of you have NASH or NAFLD, you'll know that we're still struggling to look for biomarkers that actually tell us whether a disease is progressing in the long term, never mind over 12 weeks. So this might be why we didn't get the results that we were actually hoping for. So with this study, we combined the 2 different types of exercise that we used before. So there was some of the HIIT exercise on the bike, there was some of the resistance exercise to strengthen the muscles, and it was 12 weeks again. So again, we saw a lovely decrease in liver fat in patients with NASH. We also saw quite a marked change in visceral fat, which is the fat around the organs, which is classed more as the dangerous type of fat. And we saw a drop in the triglycerides that were circulating in the blood. What we didn't see is any change in inflammatory markers over the 12-week period, and we didn't see any effect on these biomarker scores of NASH, such as the NAFLD fibrosis score. But we were kind of trying to use as many options as we had available to see if we could see a difference, because there isn't a definitive before and after that we could have used. And I actually think 12 weeks may not have been long enough to actually see these changes take place. So this is kind of the story so far. Other places, I think there's now a study very similar to this going on in Australia that are picking up these results and trying to extend them to see if they come up with anything different. So the clinical implications, what I like about all this evidence is exercise, regardless of what you do, improves liver fat and sugar control if you've got NAFLD. The key is doing something, so it's finding something you like that you can do and you can do in the long term. As I say, the role of exercise in NASH in reducing chronic inflammation, the jury's still out with that one. But we should be including exercise as part of standard care for patients with NAFLD, or at least signposting people as to where they can go to get more advice and more help on this. And this is one of my roles in the clinics at the moment. Again, how it should be delivered most effectively in the longer term needs further investigation. So whether it should be a hospital-based exercise class or whether the community teams are better placed to pick this up, that's yet to be picked apart. So what are we doing as in our NAFLD clinics enough? So we're trying to introduce activity monitoring, so at least we know what people are doing at the start. So then if they make any changes, we can capture that, or we can at least provide some guidance as to where people can set their goals and where they might want to be trying to move towards. I'll give out pedometers to every man and the dog if they come and see me in clinic, because I just think it's a nice way of people knowing what they're doing. Unless you're measuring it, you don't know how many steps you do. You don't know how many steps you do compared to your husband or your kids. So it's a nice way of just tracking what you're doing. And what we're trying to be, the management of NAFLD, the best way I feel of manage it is becoming multidisciplinary. So it's not just the medics that are there in the clinic. We've got a dietitian that's there every week, and there most weeks, and we're trying to pull in as many different skill sets as possible, because what we've realised is a lot of this is about behaviour change, and it's about getting people on board and supporting people to make these changes, because these aren't easy, and they're often habits that we're trying to break that have been there for a lifetime. So it's trying to draw in all the skills from the team and signposting people to the most relevant members. And as I say, one of my jobs really at the moment is trying to get a grip of exercise on referral schemes, community gyms, weight management programs, walking groups, and getting people signposted to them if they're keen. If they're not keen, that's absolutely fine. But if someone wants to do it, I want to try and get them into those sessions that they'll hopefully enjoy. So I've probably covered most of this. I think one of the key things is it needs to be long term. All our exercise studies have been snapshots. So in clinical life, what we need to do is encourage patients to feel empowered to make changes that last not the length of a clinical study, but at least a fair few months, if not years. So how are we translating these findings into clinical practice? I was lucky enough, it was back in 2013, I applied to NIHR, which is National Institute for Health Research, for a clinical lectureship. And I'm quite unusual because you don't get many physios that work in the liver world, so I'm quite surprised actually that they funded me. But obviously they can see that this is a massive area to work on, and there's a massive niche in the market. So the actual title of my lectureship is Delivering the First Evidence-Based Lifestyle Service Pathway for People with NAFLD. It's going to be a bit of a mammoth task, but we're starting to chip away at it. So we've broken it down into 4 phases, and the first phase was really to get a good handle on what actually goes on out there, what patients getting as part of their standard care, what do the healthcare professionals think they're delivering as part of their day-to-day practice for patients with NAFLD, because there's not any evidence out there to actually look at to suggest what normal practice is. Then from there, what we're hoping to do is refine and optimise those ideas, and those ideas of good practice as well, where things are going well. Well, let's see if we can roll them out a bit further and optimise them across the region. And then eventually what we're hoping, we'll develop some tools that will help the healthcare professionals to help patients to make these lifestyle changes. Because what we found, I think, from a lot of the healthcare professionals is they just don't really know where to go for the advice on lifestyle. The medics get very little training on this as part of their medical training. Physios don't normally work in liver disease. We've got one dietitian, so it's trying to provide the tools for the GPs, the practice nurses, and everyone else that's involved in your care. And then we'll pilot it to see how we get on. So the first phase is complete. We interviewed, we ended up with 30-odd people, which actually is quite a lot for a qualitative study. We tried to get a real mix of healthcare professionals in primary care, so we spoke to some of your GPs, some of your practice nurses. And in secondary care, what we wanted was not just the NAFLD specialist team. We wanted to speak to the general hepatologist, the gastroenterologist, the diabetologist, anyone really that might be seeing patients with NAFLD, to find out what they were doing and what they really needed. And then we spoke to 12 patients, some from primary care that never come through to the hospital to see a hepatologist, and some that we're seeing in secondary care as well. And what we were really interested in is what took them to the doctor, what happened then, what was that consultation like when you were told you had NAFLD, and then what happened next. So this is kind of a summary of the interview so far. What we found from a healthcare professional point of view is the process of diagnosing patients for NAFLD was improving. We're still a long way off having it perfect, but I think there's some local guidelines been implemented in the last few years, and that's really helped GPs to guide them a little bit into what tests need to be done. So generally it was felt that that was improving. However, from a patient perspective, what I would say 80% of the patients found that once they got that diagnosis, they didn't get the information that they needed about what that meant, what NAFLD was, and what they could do about it. And if we're talking about it being a lifestyle condition, this is the bit that conversation is key in people understanding that actually they can actually make a change to their liver health with what they actually do. The next thing we found was, from patient and healthcare perspective, is patients with NAFLD are usually monitored by clinicians. What I mean is they often go back for repeat appointments, but it's often for repeat blood tests. So we'll see you in a year, but we're not going to really do anything in between. So what we're really needing is some kind of support in place for people to actually make changes when they do go back. They would expect there to be a difference. Because if you've not changed anything, then really why would anything have got any better? So that's something that we're really focusing in on as well. Again, it comes back to number 4 is a team of people, so not just relying on the medics trying to do all this, it's trying to pull in the skills of people like myself, the dietitians, practice nurses, anyone that really can get the messages across about the lifestyle side of things. And the last thing is that it needs to be a range of interventions. So one thing isn't going to fit all of you. So we need to have different options that people can dip in and out of. And as I say, so it's much more of a tailored service. So we just had this published in Clinical Gastroenterology and Hepatology, and our main recommendations at this point was that patients need the information regarding what it is, how it manifests and how it can be managed when they're diagnosed. And that's come from patients just saying, I just was told to go and Google it, or I went on the internet and I was just really scared then because I didn't know what was right and what was wrong. So we need some kind of consensus on what this information should be. We're looking to develop some kind of training program for clinicians, so particularly in primary care, they know what it is and what they should be telling patients. I mean, GPs have to deal with a whole host of different problems, and a lot of the GPs said NAFLD and liver disease is one of their strengths. It's a kind of a new kid on the block as well. So it's trying to get this message through to them and helping to support them. And again, it's this multidisciplinary tailored approach. So where are we at the moment? So I'm trying to do an ongoing review of services that are available outside the NHS. So if a patient comes to me, I can signpost them to exercise referral, and I'm hoping that in time that I'll be able to be put on some kind of e-document that will be available to at least the hepatologists within the trust, if not the GPs out in primary care, because then we need to make it as easy as possible for people to access services. We have been running focus groups to establish where the gaps are and where the real problems are for patients and staff, and what tools are going to be necessary to support those changes for patients. This review of behaviour change techniques is basically a psychological type review, but it's looking at which techniques really work. If patients and staff wanted to change behaviour, what ingredients need to be included in what we're trying to design. So it might be that goal setting is really important. It might be that information provision. No one's done a review of that yet, so we're trying to pull all this information together so we can make whatever we develop, hopefully, as useful as possible. And then when we have these tools, what we really want to do is involve patients and staff. Well, patients are going to be the people that are using them, staff are going to be the people delivering them. So we want everyone to find that they work. So we'll be having some co-design type workshops for this. And the last phase, does this work? Has it made any difference? It's not going to be a full-blown randomised control trial because the study isn't long enough, the money in the lecture is not big enough to do that. But within Newcastle we can start to look at, has this helped in such and such an area in primary care? So that's kind of where we're heading, and this leads us to the beginning of 2020. And I can hand on heart say that at the moment we have made changes from some of these interviews where patients have said, if only I'd have known this, if only I'd been given this. We're already starting to make those changes in the smaller clinics within Newcastle that we can at the moment. And one of those things, a bit of a plug, is to set up a NAFLD education session. And so I don't know of anything like this that's running in the country. So myself and Laura, who's our specialist dietitian, we're going to start running these. It is for patients with NAFLD because it's going to be kind of a tip session, question and answer session. But if any of you want to come along or know anyone with NAFLD that might be interested, it's going to be here at the Freeman. We've got 2 dates at the moment, but we're going to hopefully set more dates once we know what the uptake is. And we just want to thank LIVErNORTH because they're going to hopefully sponsor these meetings and provide the tea and coffee on the evenings and hopefully a bit of advertising at some of the future meetings as well. So I think we're moving in the right direction. There's a lot of work to do, but these things can only help, I think. So my voice is pretty much lost. I don't know. Hope you can't understand. But does anyone have any questions about any of the lifestyle?
Yeah, as you can see, I'm disabled, so doing furious exercise isn't going to be anything that I could do. I mean, it takes me all my time just to make meals for myself, or do anything at all. In fact, I'm in a losing battle at home. What can I do about it?
I think a lot of it's about managing what you can do at the moment. This is why it needs to be very tailored.
Very little.
So it wouldn't be sending people that couldn't manage to a gym session. It would be thinking, let's see how much you can do at home. Is there little ways you can do a little bit more? And I think that applies to everyone. It's looking at where you're at the moment and not trying to push you into the same thing. So someone like yourself, it might be just working out how many steps you did a day around the house, seeing if you could increase the amount. For someone else that's already doing a lot, you might be trying to see if there's an exercise
I don't know
session.
what I'm going to be like from one day to the next.
Yes.
And I've got fibromyalgia, so I can just pop off to sleep and sleep for 3 hours, and I realise 3 hours has gone by.
So I think it's managing what you can do, because I think this is where the tailoring really comes into its own.
I tend to push myself, when I can do a bit more, and then I ruin the day, and it takes me about 4 days to get over it.
Is there an optimum sort of step a day?
The government recommend 10,000 steps a day. That's kind of been plucked out of the ether a little bit. Generally, the more you do, the better. But if you set 10,000 as a target, what we don't use that with our patients, because what we found is some people were doing a lot less, and if you're saying the target is 10,000, then that's a bit soul destroying. So I would say if you can, the apps on the phones that you can now get are really good for measuring steps. So measure what you do on a day-to-day basis and try and increase it.
Is there an optimum that you shouldn't go above? Is there no maximum?
Not unless you've got other health problems and it's starting to cause you other issues. You'll find it's difficult to clock up more than 20,000 is really difficult unless you're doing a lot of extra exercise. But I would aim for 10,000 and just set yourself little goals. But
you mentioned the 2 sessions that you did, the 8-week session and the 12-week session. You said 3 hours, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
What was the duration of each session?
Off the top of my head, it was around about 45 minutes. So the resistance was a little bit longer because the HIIT one was obviously designed to be a little bit shorter. But what we did with the HIIT one is that as people got fitter, we were a bit naughty that we added on extra spikes of high intensity to try and push them a bit further. So it kind of got longer as well. So 45 minutes. In terms of exercise recommendations, the public health message is 30 minutes on 5 days a week. But obviously that's for general health. So I would just say see where you are, what you can manage, and just try and set yourself manageable goals.
Yeah, it's just when you're talking about the sort of the multidisciplinary part of it, so you're looking at exercise and you're looking at obviously diet.
Yeah.
For the diet, bear in mind that the NASH patients, although it's good for them to exercise and and obviously lose weight, etc., etc. Would, if a patient is diabetic, would it be crucial that they actually got their diabetes under control?
Yeah.
As part of this, because
and that's one of the things. That's one of the first things the doctors will say to you. It's trying to get them either the diet or the medication for the diabetes right, because that's one of the determinants for NAFLD progression is type 2 diabetes. The other thing for the lifestyle stuff, all the lifestyle stuff that we're talking about is brilliant for diabetes, so it's kind of a double hit.
Right, it's two things. One is, it is your clinic, and which, I goes to fatty liver disease, that's in General Hospital. And I think it's a communication gap between you and them, because they never mention about yourself or anything that's happening around.
I mean, it is getting better, because we went through a period of time where I wasn't in the clinic, but now I'm there every week, so I'm kind of like, is anyone going to refer to me? They are getting better. But I think there's still, even the specialists don't push the lifestyle stuff as much as they probably should. So another thing we are trying at the moment, I'm working with Professor Anstey on a Thursday morning where they have a new patient NAFLD clinic. So he's doing the first bit of the screening, and then I'm picking up the lifestyle side of things for all the new patients. So we're hoping that's a way of getting these crucial messages at diagnosis through to people as well.
Where would I find details of these exercise programs?
Do you mean the research programs or the ones in the community?
The resistance or the PHI.
What I can do is I can send the references of the actual scientific papers, and they actually have it written down within them. They're quite straightforward exercise programs, because what we wanted to design was people that exercise interventions that people could do, not just as part of the study. So I can email Joan John the references, and if it's not clear from those, I can actually write it out in more lay terms as well. So.
Fatigue is obviously a huge issue for the patients. So when you were doing all this, was there any improvement in fatigue?
There wasn't a massive improvement, but there also wasn't that much people getting worse either. Generally, people find that if they exercise, you get these kind of endorphins released. Actually, it does make you feel better, but we do realise fatigue is a massive problem. But if it's not getting worse and you're getting the benefits of the exercise, it might be worth giving it a try.
Excuse me, surely diet comes into this.
Oh yeah.
Would you advocate a vegan?
Because I've
made the big jump to.
I'm not a dietitian. Diet plays a massive part in this, and weight loss is key. I'm not going to go into specifics about diet, because if you did want the dietitian to come along at some point, she's doing a lot of work around Mediterranean diet, because that seems to be the diet at the moment that has the most benefit in NAFLD and NASH. Obviously, weight loss is key, so a lot of it is about reducing the calories, reducing the portion sizes. But if you did want Laura to come along, I'm sure she would be more.
Sorry, what's her name?
Her name's Laura Hay, which I'm sure she...
H-U-I?
H-A-I-G-H.
Oh, Hay. Yeah.
Hay.
Thank you.
I don't know whether that you asked about the GP referrals. I think the GP do move to improve program.
It's different.
Is it different everywhere?
It's different everywhere. So Newcastle run LIVEwell, which is the exercise on referral program. I think Move to Improve is Sunderland. Gateshead run something else, and it's really hard to keep on top because it all keeps changing with the funding and things like that. But if the GPs should be able to send you to exercise and referral. Definitely in Newcastle, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is one of the criteria now. In some other areas, they're not quite forward-thinking, so it's often still obesity, diabetes, or we just write it on disorder. So it's really worth speaking to your GP or practice nurse about as well.
Okay, it's really encouraging that just little changes and starting from where you're at can make such a big difference. But I've just got a thing about the way we use language, and I think talking about behaviour change, and I know this is the phrase, always makes me feel like I've been naughty and I've done something wrong, and it makes me feel guilty and that I've somehow brought things on myself. And it just, you know, it really makes me feel that it is exciting, and if it was presented to me, I haven't got an NAFLD, but nevertheless, like, everyone could do more exercise, and we all know that we need to do more exercise. And I just wonder about how to, you know, how to change the language so that people don't end up.
And I think the behaviour change thing is very psychology led. So you can tell we've had a psychologist working.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'll often say it's about your habits.
Yeah.
It's about what you've grown up doing, and it's just maybe trying to think a little bit differently and challenge yourself to try something new.
And it's maybe not even about habits and what you've grown up doing, it's maybe about the fact that you have got fatigue, so your exercise levels have actually dropped off, and so there's a kind of bit of a vicious circle.
Yeah, I mean,
and I just wonder about more positive ways of putting it, like, you know, activity therapy, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Just, you know. Anyway, it's just a comment, because I'm sitting here thinking, great, I'm feeling really motivated, I'll do some more, but then I kind of kick against the but that means I've, you know, the implication of blame somehow.
I've definitely tried to change the way I approach this with thinking, right, in the past when I worked in traditional physio, I would be like, right, we need to get you in an exercise program regardless of what you tell me. Whereas now I'm like, well, what do you enjoy? Where are you at? What do you want to do? Because it's all about the person actually wanting to do it, and it's trying to figure out a way of getting them from where they are to maybe not to that place, but on that path to where they want to be in it. And I definitely have found myself trying to listen a lot more to what people tell me rather than going, exercise on referral for everybody. So we are trying to do that a bit more, but I do appreciate a lot of the language. And I think there is, as I said, I briefly mentioned, there is still quite a lot of stigma attached to the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease name. And that is something we've flagged up, but it's not something that we as an activity team can do anything about, but hopefully it gets passed on to the powers that be that work on the big European studies.
Please don't brought that up, because I daren't bring it up anymore because I've got NAFLD. Do you know what I mean? And it is true, Kate. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You know, people here are bored with me saying that when I was scanned, you know, the scanner said to me, "Oh well, typical Geordie liver," and I didn't want to come back. Because, you know, I was a mum with 2 small children. I had a full-time job. I didn't have time to sit. But I do honestly think that a couple of things. One, I think the stress is underestimated, because I know as a diabetic, when I was in the 6 weeks holiday, towards the end of the 6 weeks holiday as a teacher, my blood sugar levels were lower.
Oh well, I know.
They were lower, but when I went back to school, they were out of control. So the stress was affecting me, you know, regarding my blood sugar control. So that was a factor. But the other thing is, when it comes to sort of the name, as you say, I think if people could understand the concept, and I mean medics, can understand the concept of personalising something, because the conversation that you're obviously talking about, you know, to go to Professor Anstey, to be then passed on, as long as there's a personalised agenda there, understanding where the person's coming from, and not for a GP, for instance, to say, as I said to a friend of mine, oh, you have to cut out the fish and chips now. She doesn't eat fish and chips on the regular. Do you know? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of assumption made, and it's a lot of education.
Definitely.
The medics as well.
And I think sometimes they're the worst culprits for presuming things about people. So, I mean, there is a lot of work to be done.
Is there value in getting overweight health workers and a health worker?
Is there
value in getting overweight health workers on board?
We would love to get.
Because I think that would be excellent.
Well, we would love to get more people, because basically we're getting the tide of NAFLD coming towards us, and even though we're a big team in Newcastle, as teams go, there's still only 1 dietitian, 1 physio and 2 consultants, and having people like yourself that we can pass people to, or even Yeah, we've had other people in the community that have wanted to form partnerships, and I think that's where it's got to go
It's
to.
just, I think the value is, it's a bit like the smoking cessation service.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in front of somebody who's actually been a smoker, you want to give up smoking, they can't say, I know how you feel like it.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're in that position of someone and a fatty liver, then you really can't.
Yeah, it's like the Weight Watcher clinics. Quite often the people who are running the Weight Watcher clinics are people who've lost weight. So immediately
you've got
there's an
that bond
empathy,
there,
you know, there's an empathy
yeah.
bond there, yeah.
I'm sure you can find a few of them.
She's looking at me, you know. I'll walk across here magnificently. Kate's also my provider. So, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. Don't worry about the voice. I think everybody managed to hear you okay. I have a small gift for you. It is very small. It's our Cracker Jack pen. You don't know what that is, do you? I can pick the white hair so you know what the Cracker Jack is. These pens are not given out willy-nilly. These are only for our lecturers. They're ancient, they're top quality. So there's your free pen, and thank you very much. And this lovely assistant.
Thank you.
I hope you make me look thin. This is your trolley token. It's an old pound coin one, but it fits in the new pound. Thank you. So thanks very much for doing the questions and answers. I'd now like you to take someone fabulously well. It's our Numbers Club draw for tonight. Someone will win £250. If you want to join the Numbers Club, it's £1 a week, and if you just email us, we'll give you all the information. All the numbers are in there. 15, oh, it's somebody who joined a long time ago.
It's Brian Jackson from Manchester.
Brian Jackson from Manchester, very good. Well done, Brian. And the other raffle, which has been run by Fiona and Yvonne, was it? Just Fiona. It's on a yellow ticket because we've only sold yellow tickets.
This one's 386.
386, that looks like.
Here we are.
There you go, there's the winner. Please come up, take a prize, and pick the next winner.
Okay, if I can get up.
Well, I'll get your prize for you.
Yeah.
It's anything on that table, including the Liberty Injury. 376. 376. Come up and coming down. There's got to be somebody in this room. Just pick out, yeah, you can have your pick out. These two are in front of you. 42, right. 426. 426.
That's me, John, but just put it back.
Are you sure? Now, do you trust me to draw this myself without looking? It's on the yellow one. 382. 382. 382. Good? Yes, come on down. You can't win two prizes unless you buy two tickets. You can take the last draw. Take a draw, take a draw.
Whoever presented the prices, right?
$420. 420. One of the last ones sold. Good man, Wally. Nice to see you here. You win the Liver Angel, which is quite appropriate considering you're married to it.
Don't get a camera on the stand.
Oh no, you can have it. Yes, I thought that was a prize, John. You take the angel, that's right. No, you win them. Sorry. Right, I've got a few announcements to make. Tonight is our AGM, so we have to elect the governors who are up for election every year, and also to ask, does anyone like to stand as a governor? And I know I've already talked Alf Bennett in, So you're trying to hide, aren't you?
No, I'm not. Stand up on the table if you wish.
If anyone else would like to be considered, please put your hand up. We're more than welcome. More the merrier. Thank you. Excellent. Right, we'll have so we now have our full complement of governors. So can we ask for re-election of the existing governors plus our 2 new proposals? All right. Thank you. All right, that's recorded. Next is going back to the talk we've just had. We produced with Professor Anstey a leaflet called Liver and Lifestyle and Your Liver. It's leaflet number 11. It's a booklet, and it contains guidance on exercise, diet, and charts to mark your progress. You can have one of those from us anytime you like. It's booklet 11, and there's also a leaflet called 11A, which is non-alcoholic fat, a NAFLD leaflet. And NASH, yes, so we combined in one. So, if you want the booklet, Lifestyle and Liver, it does encourage the Mediterranean diet, but it's been written, I think you were involved in it, Kate, yes, that's it there. Okay, it's a really useful guidebook, and we've got any amount if you would like one.
Where do we get one?
Yeah, we'll get one just... does anyone else like one? We're going to get some now. There's half a dozen, Joan. Yeah. Now, aren't you lucky people, because we managed to get the temperature in this room up to about 95 degrees. So, you didn't even have to spend a penny on holiday. If I can just take a second to explain, that building there is called Dalkia. It's run by Dalkia, who operate services for the hospital. They do the water, the air, the electricity, and the heating. And if you want to alter the temperature of the hospital, you have to send a message to Dalkia. 2 days later, the temperature is altered. Because the building is massive. It takes 2 days to get it all down in temperature, okay? So they keep it at a constantly high temperature so nobody is cold. Unfortunately, with the windows closed and the curtains drawn, it starts to boil. But that's the reason for it, so bear with us, please. That's fine. Now, if Kate gives us the links that people have asked for, we'll put them on our Facebook and Twitter feeds. If you've never looked at them, please do. You join Facebook by, if you've never done it, you just need an email address and your date of birth and your name. As soon as you've joined, you can change all of that except your name, and then you can just look. You don't have to write anything, you don't have to download anything. You can just read and look at what LIVErNORTH's putting on, because our latest information is on Facebook and Twitter. Quentin Anstey, who did the NAFLD and lifestyle leaflet, is probably well known to several of you, but he looks like Jacob Rees-Mogg. So he's the man that you've seen in clinic, and he's a really good guy. He's been made professor about 18 months now, and he's a really top guy. So that's about it, folks. Has anyone got any questions for me? No, thank God. Well, I gave you long enough to think about it. All right, thanks for coming. Do let us know if you can help out at the autumn fair. Do let us know if you want to come to the Christmas dinner. Right. Oh yes, sorry, sis. Peggy's for sale. Yes, Peggy's not here. So I'll tell you what's happened with Peggy. Her husband's been getting radiotherapy. She's tired out of taking him to the hospital. We'll bring some pens and everything next issue. Would you like next meeting? Would you like something to sell? Say that and give you 10 or something. No, seriously. Yeah. Right. If anyone wants pens to sell, just let us know, and I can give you 10 or 20 to move. All right. Keyring or badges or the trolley tokens. Yes. Jolly good. Next meeting, I've mentioned it, but yes, it's 6th of September. Yes, Colin Wilson on liver perfusion. All right. Now if I can see you two before we go. No. Right. Thank you very much, folks. Take care, and we'll see you in September.
Oh, right.
There you are. Do you want your walking stick there? Careful.
Oh, yeah, shit. What you give me? The tie. No, I was going to get the tie. Get it on the computer. You said you could get it on.
Any exercise is enough. The more you do it, the better. 3 minutes.
Well, why don't you
It's not going to have to much of